preparing to live stream.
Oh, it actually gave me a notification. Got it. Hello, everyone, our Keystone students, their families, and everyone else. Thank you for joining us today for our Facebook Live off topic, where our focus is going to be math. In the room with me, well, first I'll introduce myself and I'll introduce everybody else. My name is Haley Wagner. I'm one of the instructional supervisors here at Keystone. I oversee our math department in the high school, as well as our social studies department in the high school. With us as well is Mr. John Wishney, who is in middle school math. Mrs. Lindsay Gillette is our middle school social studies teacher, and Mr. Josh Bastianello is our science middle school teacher. So we're kind of coming together from a bunch of different backgrounds to talk about how we use math in our day-to-day, kind of answering that age-old question of when am I going to use this? Giving a little bit of context to why we're encouraging you to follow through with your math studies, regardless of what your career outlooks are going to be. As a social studies teacher, I can tell you I ask that question a lot. Math isn't really one of my strongest subjects, so I was always curious how a social studies teacher was going to step in the math world. But I can tell you that there are little usages of math lurking behind every quarter, and that's kind of what we're exploring today. So just jumping on in, kind of getting to know everybody, we're going to figure out one thing like within the last week or so that our teachers have done in their day-to-day, their personal lives, that they've really pulled from that math background and that knowledge. We'll start with our math teacher, Mr. John Wishney.
So one thing that I always know that I come across, and everybody comes across, is when it comes to going out and buying things, there's always some kind of sales tax that's attached to everything. Depending on what state you're in, it could be like 6% to 9%, 10%, wherever you are. There's some added amount. So something that I had thought of recently is when something says that it's 10% off, a good way to figure out how much you're paying for it is just what that original price is. And what I mean by that is, let's say something is costs $20. If you just purchase that at the $20, you add on the 6 to 9% sales tax, you're actually paying closer to $21.50, $22 or something. If it's 10% off, well, you're taking 10% off of the original price, but then you're adding 6 to 9%. So it's kind of canceling out, and you're going to end up paying basically $20, maybe a little bit less. So that's a really quick mental math thing that you can do. If something says 10% off, just imagine that it's going to be that actual price, and you won't really be surprised. Something else in terms of like percentages that was mentioned earlier is applying a tip. When you go out to eat, there's always a tip that you put on. That's in addition to the cost of the meal that goes to the server, right? So an easy way to remember what's 20% of this really weird number with a decimal. I can't think of that. All you have to do is move the decimal point over one place and then double that, and you've basically got 20%. So something's, $45 meal, 10% of that is you move the decimal point over, that's $4.50. Double that into $9, there you go. That's your 20% tip. And you round up, round down, whatever you need to do from there. But there's so many things with percentages specifically that can be pretty quick mental math things if you just know that little trick about it. So that's something that everybody has to deal with buying things. So taxes and tips always come up.
Awesome. Yeah. We were just talking about that a little bit before we started our Facebook Live, trying to figure out the tips, and depending on how you want to tip. And I know that I have family members who will sit down and figure out the perfect number to get a solid figure. So if the meal was $20, they try to figure out, or $20.21, they try to figure out what exact tip is going to make that final number $25. So kind of little things like that, where even math can be a little bit fun. You don't necessarily have to end up on an even number, but some people like seeing that when it pops into your bank account. I think money's a hugely important reason why math going into adulthood and all of that in your real world and your real application is a great area. Ms. Gillette, would you like to go next?
Yes. So hi, I teach social studies. I'm Lindsay Gillette, and I was actually just trying to figure out quite recently. So my family and I are moving 3,000. Sorry, no, hold on. We are moving. This is why you need math in your life. We are trying to figure out how to drive 10 hours a day to get to our final destination. And so we figured it out that we're going to be driving for 3 days, and we have 4 pets. And so we needed to figure out how many miles, if we drove 10 hours, how many miles that would take us, and then find a hotel at that destination. And so we calculated it out. We had our maps out, and we found 2 hotels in the middle. So the first day we're going to drive 9 hours and 56 minutes. And the second day we're going to drive 9 hours and 28 minutes. And then on the third day, we have to drive 10 hours and 41 minutes, but we will make it. And so that's just a way that we had to really like sit down and concentrate and map it all out and figure out how many miles we were going to be driving, how many hours that was going to take us, because we don't want the cats in the car for too long. And then I actually do the decimal point moving for tips all of the time. It's how I tip. I just move it over once and then times it by 2. Yeah, and plus in baking and like yard work and gardening, all those things, I'm always using math and numbers.
That's awesome. To just interject real quick, we do have another teacher joining us as well. Miss Kelsey Moberg has joined us from our middle school English department. So just so you know, a new face popped into the picture. Thank you, Miss Gillette, for going over all of those things. I think that's an awesome thing to point out as well. Just like traveling. I know like one of the things I hated growing up were always like the train direction, like the train problems, where if the train leaves from this point, when's it gonna, and all those different factors that you can kind of hear. Where's the hotel? Where are we gonna stop? And just trying to figure out your best laid plans. We're gonna go ahead and just go over to Mr. Bastianello to share us how he uses math in his day-to-day real personal life.
All right, well, thanks. So it comes down to money again. I mean, this is just adulting.
Makes the world go around.
What you use math for most things. So I recently I bought a car. We bought a new car, and in all of that, one is first you have to figure out, well, how much can you afford when you're buying a car? You know, there's a certain maximum amount that, okay, well, this is going to be what we can afford paying for this car. And that's only the tip of the iceberg, because one, the price that they give you for a car is not the final price you're going to pay for that car, because there's taxes, title, registration fees, dealer fees, all sorts of stuff that go on there. So you actually have to think in your mind an end goal price of how much you want to pay for. So, you know, for example, if you're saying, well, I can afford a $25,000 car, if the price is listed at $25,000, you're going to end up paying more than that $25,000. So that's one thing you got to keep in mind. The second thing then is, you know, we're all teachers. We probably can't afford to buy a $25,000 car with cash. So what comes into play is, you know, loans. So loans are a big thing, and that's not just for cars. You have a mortgage to pay for your house, college loans. There's all kinds of loans. But you have to also figure out that, like, okay, how much can I afford to pay each month based on, you know, what my budget is. On another tangent, then that's a budget. You're creating a budget for your family, and that's math. So you're realizing, okay, how much can we spend each month on groceries, on entertainment, on clothing, and this and that. And, you know, you have that. So this car for us comes into that point, and it's like, okay, well, how much can I pay for that? Okay. So say, let's just throw out a number and say, okay, well, I can afford $200 a month. So now you're doing this math to figure out, okay, well, $200 a month times how many years am I going to have this? How many months am I going to have this loan for? So, you know,
how much is the insurance going to cost? Which is always that sneaky thing that creeps behind you.
Exactly. And then there's the, I mean, I guess you could call it like the hidden costs, because then there's insurance that you have to pay for as well, you know, and that kind of thing. So it's just, you're running through all these sort of formulas and numbers in your head to figure this out. And that's not even getting into interest rates. And we talked about percentages, you know, now you have interest rates. Well, okay, I can get a $200 loan, but a $200 loan right now, and this is a pretty relevant subject with inflation and high interest rates that we have right now in the country. So, you might get 200, you could say I can do $200 a month, but if you're getting, an 8% interest rate on that loan, well, you're not really paying 200 a month. You're paying, whatever it is. So there's all these different factors that come in. And I mean, the nice thing about math in general is that you can figure this stuff out ahead of time if you plan, and you don't get caught off guard, and you can make a good plan. But a lot of people just will go in and say, okay, here's what money I have, and then they actually end up paying more because they haven't gone through these math formulas really in their head, or writing it down or whatever, just to come up with, hey, this is really what the costs are going to be. So that's a real world example that just happened to me pretty recently.
Definitely, like using the people around you, asking them questions, using your resources is a huge important thing. Because I can say that my first car did not go that smoothly because I was not prepared to do I have this much money for a car, and then all the things that stack on top of it. So it's definitely something, use your friends, your family, anyone who has that knowledge. YouTube videos are pretty much address everything and anything under the sun.
And gas, you got to pay for gas too.
Gas, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. Awesome. Ms. Moberg, would you like to share with us how you use math on your day-to-day?
So same, budgeting and just money wise, especially now since we have kids and we have to, balance all of that in life, and the life that we had before and now our life with our kids, because it seems like there's something all the time, like baseball pictures need, new cleats, all this kind of stuff, plus the things that we have. So it's really just budgeting things out and making sure we have extra. So if something comes up, we can do that, while also like putting money away so that we can do the fun things. But that's definitely how we use math in our household. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think money is kind of definitely the go-to. Everybody has to deal in money. Everybody has it all the time. Ms. Stewart was talking about doing a construction project where you're trying to figure out like the square footage of things, like the amount of concrete needed, the angle that you need to, like all these different things. You kind of get where math ends up mixing with the social studies when charts and trying to figure out like population per. You get to demographic information if you want to like assess a county. There's a lot of different jobs as you go and you learn how to do your work where the math sneaks in. It's kind of like, well, I wanted to go like be a social worker, but the math is still there because I need to look at those demographic things behind it. Science is just riddled with math. I had somebody the other day tell me that chemistry is just math with fancy variables. I don't necessarily know if that's true, but they were very confident in that assessment of it. Awesome. And with that, does anybody have anything else they would like to share about math to our student population here at our Facebook Live before we kind of wrap up for the day?
I
I
did
just
want
wanna-
to.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We'll go ahead.
go for it,
Mr.
go for
Wishney, you can go first, and Ms. Gillette, we can go with you afterwards.
Yes, I'll be quick. So I do a lot of community theater nearby, and part of what we do is we build the sets. And so what's required when building the sets is we've got, we need to make a wall that's 8 feet long. We need to make the frame for that wall. So we need to think, okay, we need to cut the pieces of wood into different parts. And I'm not the only one there. There's other guys who are older than me, and when we think about the calculations, we grab a piece of paper and we sketch things out, and we say, okay, so we need 8 feet, that's 96 inches, and we need to make sure that we have this part at 48 inches, so we have to measure that perfectly, and the pieces of wood are 1.5 inches thick, so we have to factor that into the calculation. So like we have to shave 3 inches off of everything, otherwise the set's going to be wobbly or something's going to fall, and we don't want that to happen. So even something that is in the arts with theater, you still got to use math to figure out what the sets are going to look like and how to build and cut the wood and everything. So that was something I wanted to bring up in terms of another real world situation there.
Awesome. Just whenever you think if you're a theater kid, you can avoid it. No, it'll find you one way or another. Ms. Gillette?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I have a background in psychology, and they have found that the more math you do, the less likely you are to get Alzheimer's and other degenerative brain diseases. And problem solving is one of the best ways to keep your brain healthy, and to start your brain strong when you're younger, is doing a lot of math and problem solving. And then you have what is called cognitive reserves. So if you do get a degenerative disease, it's actually like the stored power, which is really rare. We don't have that in a lot of cases where you have backups for your body. But if you do a lot of problem solving, you can have cognitive reserves. And it's just really healthy. It's good to keep your brain healthy. And then I just wanted to say that there's a stigma around math, that people are good at math and some people are bad at math. And that's not true. Everyone can be good at math. It's just everyone does math. We innately can do math. And so everyone can be good at it.
Wonderful. I think that's a perfect signing off. Is just, if you do more math, your brain is going to work better for longer. That's the moral of the story. Pick up a Sudoku occasionally, maybe just jot down a Pythagorean theorem and see if that can help you as you get older. That's fantastic. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you for watching. Please leave us a comment if you have any questions, anything that you want to see in these Facebook Lives. We would love to hear from you. Give us a like, give us a follow, all of those things. And thank you all to our teachers here today for sharing their love of math and how they see it in their lives. So thank you and have a great rest of your week.